Well, it depends what you're asking, but I mean, you may have some of those kids that are defiant. Take it away, and I would take everything away. Hot water, everything except a mattress. I mean, because at some point that you are dealing with a child that wants to be in control and they become stubborn. And the stubbornness is sometimes by their nature, and they're going to need to figure out somewhere else. I can still love on them, but it's you choose whether you want these things or not. And I say that, we had a group of guys that when Jan and I lived in-house, we lived there for about 2.5 years in one room as we started everything. And there was a group of guys that didn't want to clean the toilets that they had in this one bathroom. And so anyway, I took the toilet and got rid of it. And so they came home from school, and they came home and they go in and, like most kids do when they come home from school, they go poop or pee or, or whatever, and they walk in and all there is a hole in the floor. And they thought it was kind of funny at first because all they had to do was pee. And then, well, we have to do the other. What are we supposed to do? Oh, figure it out. So they did. They would go get a pan full of water, and then they would, squat over the hole. I thought it was funny. And then they'd pour water down the thing. And after the first day, they go, "Do you think we'll ever get a toilet back?" "I don't know. You guys don't clean it. I mean, and I'm not cleaning it for you." And so the second day came, and it was not that, they just didn't think that much. Then it gets where it's uncomfortable, and they go, "Wait a minute, what do we need to do to get it back?" I don't know. Let me think about it. And they were begging me to get their toilet back. I mean, because it's hard to, guys, it's easy to aim when you're peeing, but when you're pooping, it's not. And so there were just some mishaps that happened along the way and that they had to take care of. And I knew it, but I was just going to let it play out. Those guys came to me and they said, "We will clean all the toilets in this house, for the next so many months, and we will do this and do." They came to me and said what they would do. But I thought that I needed to break through some of their obstinateness. That they were just being obstinate, stubborn. They were going to control the thing. And so I said, "Well, I'm going to exercise some of my ability to control some things." Those same group of guys, I said, "Guys, look, there's the hot water heater here. There's not enough water for all of you to take showers, so split it up and figure it out." But somebody was complaining, and they kept running out of water. And I said, "Okay, let's do this. What do you think would be a good amount of time to have hot water on?" And they came up with 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes or something. And okay. And then and I loved it because it was a group of guys that just, it was just kind of a joke on them. And so after 2 minutes, I would be by the water heater and I'd turn it off. And it was freezing. And then you hear them yell and everything else. But my point of it was, this is your deal. You tell me and I'll do it. I'm trying to take care of everybody. But if you can't take care of stuff, then I'm going to get rid of it. And so then they came to me, "Well, what if we did it this way? What if you guys took showers at night? We took them in the morning." And so they came up with a plan. And the thing is, if I start taking things away, it forces them to start thinking differently. And that's what I want. Remember this thing of it causes a conflict. And conflict is that precursor to change. But I mean, when you let kids start figuring out, it's amazing to me that now, I mean, even to this day, every time those kids poop, they think of me. And they do. And they make comments. "Remember what you did with that toilet and all that?" Quite honestly, we needed to replace the toilet anyway. I was just using it as a good example of helping them. But usually when parents start taking things away and a kid gives up, and when a kid goes, "I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do it. That's the time that a heart light comes into play. When everything that you're doing is not working, that's when I would tell you that's where a heart light comes into play. Because we take another We take another grouping to help influence kids, and that's their peers. And so if one person doesn't do it, the whole house doesn't get to do something. And the reason we have guys and girls there, because we want them to interact with one another. They can't wait to get together. And if somebody doesn't do something in the house or is disrespectful to the staff, then none of the house gets to go participate in this one night's event. And so it's the guy sitting there going, you need to quit treating staff like that. Not in a threatful way, but in kind of an encouragement. Come on, stop. So now we got them all working together. And so, and they learn that, so they learn to quit. They learn that when they restrain some of their feelings or go along with us, then there's a reward for that. So, and it may be that instead of thinking that consequences are always going to push a kid away, that what you do is reward them with something that offers them something. If you complete this, you will get this. And it's got to be something that they want. You get a depressed kid, they don't want anything. They isolate, they just, I'm not going to do it. That's where you need to get outside help somewhere. I mean, and I tell you, the outside help piece, this circle over here that I talked about, dealing with the issues, I would tell you that it becomes really important. If you think kids are just going to come out of depression by themselves, they're not. They're not. It's only going to get worse. You know, you've got to participate with them in it with the hope that they pull out, but not think they can do everything on their own. Here in training, I am still involved with them in helping them along the way. I can teach them. It's like this. I built a skeet range where we shoot skeet with the kids. You know what skeet is? Skeet, throw the tiles out and you shoot at them and stuff. And so I built this range. I had about 6 months to do it because COVID came, knocked down everything. And I mean, I put so much into this range and so we have all these things. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. And it's almost that when I spend time with them, I'm going to tell them how a gun works, what the difference between a shotgun and a rifle is. I'm going to teach them about safety. I'm going to teach them the procedures about how we do this. I'm going to teach them that when the skeet comes down and you've got to shoot underneath and follow it up, and this is how you track it, this is how you determine which eye is your dominant eye, all those things. Then it's time to put the gun in their hand. And I put the gun in their hand, but I'm standing there behind them. It's not that I'm just going, do whatever you want. I am standing behind them to make sure they're doing the things that we've taught. And I'm watching them and I'm giving them insight. This is how you can do it better. Now, if you want to hit it, this is what you have to do. Wait a minute. Wait. Stop. Don't move that gun. It stays in between these two things. You don't move it anywhere. And so it's not like I just go, here, go make your own decisions and do whatever. I am participating with them all along this path. You follow me on that? And quite honestly, anybody who shoots on the range is going to have one of our staff people behind them all the time, every time. Nobody gets to shoot. I don't care whether you're the greatest shooter in the world. You're not going to be in one of the cubicles shooting without one of our staff people behind you. And so I'm not one of those guys. And that doesn't mean they're not independent. It means now I'm being safe in the midst of training them and letting them do things. Are you following me with that? So it's not this Katie bar the door, just I don't even know what Katie bar the door means, but it sounds good. But I mean, it means that I'm going to participate with them. And I'm there with them in the process of it. And so I think once we know that they've been taught and we do all of these things, it's when all this isn't working that the first thing I would tell you is a family and crisis conference, because we go a little bit deeper with handling those kids to find out, okay, what's really going on. But the next piece of it would be something like coming to Heartlight. That's why you're hoping all this stuff works, because coming to Heartlight's expensive. It's $10 an hour. Same you pay a babysitter. For 24 hours a day, times 7 days a week, times 4 weeks a month, times 11 months. It's a lot, but it takes a lot. And I go, that's why we spend time saying, let's do some other things first before we ever get to that point. Okay? Look, are you adding that up, what it would be? You're going to come up to about $80,000, I think. And we're cheap. We're cheap. Most other programs would be $150,000, something like that. We're cheap. So anyway, other questions? Other thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you're doing consequences and you say take away what they love or what's important to them, what if it's like courses or even youth group that they can't wait to get to?
Yeah. I take anything away. I mean, because
What if your child is saying, but you can't take those things away?
they just gave me reason. You know, and it's not to prove a point, but it's saying, I will do anything. I think this stuff is so important that I would take anything away. And that's where the fight for a child comes into play. Because if they have a rotten relationship with everybody at home and they're disobeying everybody and being disrespectful or doing stupid stuff, but they want to go to youth group, I go, am I thinking that that's going to influence them greater than this? Or do I really think that, and if that's the case, then yes, I want them to continue to do that. But if they're just getting out of stuff and neglecting the things that we're requiring over here, then I go, no, I'm all in on this deal. And so you're choosing to not go to youth group, not me. You're choosing this because all we're doing is asking these 5 things right here. See I think the thing we talked about last night, this transfer of responsibility, this gets your child to start making choices. And so why I say you got to let them make choices, because if you set this system up and you're making all the choices, now it all comes back to you. So you're keeping responsibility from being accepted, and you're the one that's postponing their maturity, which is a byproduct of the assumption of responsibility. Are you seeing where these things are kind of fitting together a little bit? Are they kind of being pieced in here? Some of y'all are worrying about stuff you don't need to worry about, because some of it's going to take care of itself. Well, what if, or what if, or what if, what if? I mean, worry is misuse of your imagination. Worry creates a sense of anxiety, it creates a sense of fear, then it creates a sense of panic. And it's almost like you're never going to trust anybody in the process of that. So somewhere along the line, it's saying, I'm going to trust what I've taught you, and I'm also going to trust that God's involved in your life as well. But it's being vigilant to a 13-year-old. Yes, I'm going to be more restrictive than I am on an 18-year-old. And it's got to be age appropriate. On this, I'm looking at everything on your phone. Everything. Everything. I mean, we got a 360, a square. We've got tracking on everything. I mean, you name it, we got it. I'm looking at, give me your phone. We're going to check. I'm happy to be paid for. Hey, I am happy to pay for the phone, but if I do, this is what I require. To him whom much is given, much is required. Don't repeat that to them, because they're going to be going, to him whom much is given, much is required. Give it to them and say, this is what I'm asking. I just want to see your phone every so often. Or let them know I've got a tracker on it. You let them know you got a tracker on it, or you're reading everything, then they may learn to hide things. But I just want to see your phone. And go through and look at some stuff. May mean that you need to learn about a phone.
Do you have any parental controls on it other than just the tracker at 13?
I mean, that's up to you. I would do whatever I need to do to find out what's happening in the life of my child at an early age.
It doesn't matter how much time they spend on it, or do you, as long as they're doing it?
Well, then let me answer that one here in just a minute when we do that. It may be that age 13 that you get to spend, I know families that go, you get to spend an hour a day when you come home from school on your phone, and that's it. So they write friends, get it out of the way. 14, you can spend a couple hours. At 15, now you can have your own TikTok, Snapchat. You can do whatever you want. 15, you can have an Instagram account if you want it. But so as I'm giving them more freedom, I am decreasing my involvement with them because I've trained them. At 16, I'm not checking anything. And if there's a reason for me to check something, I will. 17, it's all yours, buddy. 18, I don't even touch it. I know families that put trackers on kids that are off at college. And we had one of our staff guys whose mother had a tracker on his phone and would call him. You're in the parking lot right now. You need to go ahead and go up to your room. He's at a university in Texas. And I'm going, no wonder this kid's so messed up, because he's being treated like a little kid. And I go, there's got to be this age appropriateness. Wow, I want to know where he is. Well, growing up is risky. And it's not about you. It's about your child. It's like a violation of privacy. I believe in privacy. I mean, I think at 11 and 12, 13, yeah, you get to limit it. You put stuff in a box. I mean, I go into airports all the time, and there's cell-free zones. There's people, if I walked in and opened and picked up a phone and tried to call somebody, they'd tell me to get off the phone. I mean, that's not unusual to happen. There's places you don't. I know a man that, he just died, Kara Lee, who I was telling you about. Yesterday, stole her car, totaled it. So Kara Lee's dad dies. That's really why I was in Miami. And dad dies, so go down and speak at that thing. We sit down to eat dinner in Denver when we had that dinner. And I said I was talking with her. The dad, who is now 78 years old, 79 years old, said, Mark, we have a rule about phones. And I go, John, what's that? He goes, whoever gets on their phone has to pay for the wine. And I just want you to know, we order some very expensive bottles of wine. And I just put my phone down, and I thought, I'm not even going to look at it. Well, there's nothing wrong with having boundaries like that. I mean, I think that's healthy for kids to know. So there's boundaries that say, this is when phones can be used, and this is when they can't be used. They can't be used around the dinner table. And you can't say, don't use your phone when you're watching TV, because you're using your phone when you watch TV. But it may be that you have that the area that you do whatever, you get off your phone. But my point of it is this: it's the goal to move to a place where you're giving them control of their life. I think it's a little weird that we're paying for an 18-year-old's phone to go off to college, and at some point, and they're being disrespectful or dishonest or disobedient, and we keep paying for it. At some point, I'd quit and go, this is your deal. You figure it out. We keep doing that, and then we get, I got to keep up with them. No, if they will with you. But this idea of tracking everybody everywhere, finding out what a 20-year-old is doing on their phone at school, I think that's an invasion of privacy. And what you're doing is keeping them acting like a little 12 or 13-year-old. So, I tell kids all the time, look, you're 17. I'm not going to treat you like a 12-year-old. I'll treat you like a 17-year-old. And that also means that I have to treat them. I can't monitor everything in their life. Look, if I spent all my time correcting every time somebody does something wrong, I would never have a relationship with anybody of kids that live with us. I wouldn't, because they're always doing something wrong. And somewhere along the line, you got to go, okay, I'm gonna figure this out and do it a little bit different. But the point of it is getting to the point where they can be on their own, not where I'm monitoring everything. Okay, moms, when you catch your son looking at porn, and just because you haven't caught him doesn't mean that he's not. But age 13 or 14, when you catch him, get a man to meet with him and spend time with him. Don't try to give him all this information. You step back here and, I've heard so many moms say, well, you can't look at a naked woman if you don't assume responsibility for her life. The kid's going, what the fat is she talking about? You have no idea what they're talking about. And you just need a man to sit down with him, whether it be a neighborhood friend, whether it be a grandpa, whether it be somebody else, goes, I understand, but this is going to be a challenge for you the rest of your life. This will be a challenge for you the rest of your life, and it's only going to get worse. So you just need to know that. It's going to have to be something you did, but you can't be doing that. It's inappropriate. It's out of line. This isn't how you were designed. Well, how do you know that? Well, because you hide it. That's why. That's how you know that it's inappropriate. Anything they're hiding, they know. So, but I release them to where I'm not the one that's looking over that. This young man here at 17 is going to be dealing with that the rest of his life. Follow me with that? Everybody's always quiet when I talk about pornography, because I think everybody knows we're all faced with it in some form or fashion, in some way. So anyway, other questions? We've got 30 minutes. First thing, perfection is impossible. And I tell you, when we made the comment earlier about really how we deal with kids, and it is trying to make sure that they understand they don't have to be perfect. They just don't have to be perfect. And there's this idea that I want them to be perfect. And so we're wanting them to be something that they never will be this side of heaven. And so somewhere it's determining what's going to encourage them and help get them to a better place without demanding that they do everything totally right and good all the time, which means that we don't always have to correct them, which also means that maybe a B rating is okay, even though I know that we could tell them how to have an A rating on some task. Are you following me? Perhaps a 2.5 grade average is okay. Yeah, but I want them to go to college at so-and-so. Okay, do you hear what you just said? Where you want them to go? So an 18-year-old, you're going to determine where they go? And I go, this should be something that they're determining as well. They are capable at this age of getting married, serving in the military. They can pretty much do whatever they want. And so it's not always doing everything that way. Now, there's a longing for a kid. I want for the kids that live with us to do well in school, but I'm not going to assume responsibility for it. And so it's their deal, and I want to get them. And I believe that once we give it to them, that they take off and run with it. So perfection is impossible. And so I'm going to breeze through these real quick. The other thing is authority can't be forced. There's three things, and this is out of the Tough Guys and Drama Queens book, and I know some of y'all have gone through it. But the authority can't be forced because they don't look at authority the same way. It used to be that you always said, yes, sir. Do y'all do that in Oregon? Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Man, that's something in the South that, you got whacked. I remember reaching over, grabbing my ankles, and having a coach just blister my rear end. Were you raised in the South?
I was.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, Arkansas.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You say it, yeah. And it's demanded respect. And the reason is because they don't see authority like you and I do. That's why you see all the challenges of teachers on YouTube, or you see the challenges of cops. Well, you can't pull me over legally. I don't have to go by your laws. I don't have to. It's an uppity attitude, but they just don't have respect for authority. And part of me, for what they hear, I don't blame them. And so I just don't presume that this authoritarian approach is going to be effective, where it's like this. You will do this and you will do what I say. Why do I need that? Because I said so. Did y'all ever have that said to you? And you just go, that doesn't work anymore. And what it does is infuriate kids. And I learned that because I used to be one of these guys that would really kind of rough them up a little bit and go, you're listening to me, or you got a 10-hour work project, and it used to work, but it just doesn't work anymore. And so what that means is that I realize that the relationship, that truly the relationship is the thing that's going to make changes in the life of a child. The other part of this is this judgment has an amazing way of building walls. If I come across with a sense of perfection, and I'm also saying to them that it's going to be this way, and I'm forcing in the use of my authority in a way, and I'm coming across as judgmental, you become judgmental today, and it's amazing how it eliminates kids so quickly. And it's just trying to be careful not to have that. The challenge that we have, I think, is that we have the Word of God that gives us guidance and direction on some things. And the challenge is going, how do I take the authority that I read and put it into place and let it be the authority, and I'm just kind of the conduit, rather than me being the authority, and this is how it is. Well, you're screwed. It's stupid for you to think that way. I mean, I have kids telling me all the time, I mean, look at all the stuff they can deal with. They can deal with politics, the abortion issue that's going on right now, the whole drug scene and stuff. I mean, it's the racial stuff that's going on, which is just bizarre to me, just absolutely bizarre to me. And I go, at some point, you come across as judgmental, and you will have an opportunity to move your kid away from you. And I have to watch it a little bit because I'm a little bit old school in my comments and stuff. And I just realize it is offensive. It's not the N word or it's not the R word. There's something about being derogatory, and there's something else about just using words that are normal that they get all hot and bothered. If I don't call somebody them or they, which I'll never do, then they get all hot and bothered. I go, this is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of, but they think I'm being judgmental. And I go, no, it's not being judgmental. It's I'm not so sure that I called they or them and talk about somebody in the third person when I'm not even talking to them, I'm talking to you. And if I don't know their name, I shouldn't be talking about them in the first place, but you want me to identify them to you. Who made you the pronoun God that's going to tell me what I need to say? And I said, I just don't understand. You help me understand it, and I'll be happy. But I'm not being derogatory. Matter of fact, I think this whole pronoun thing is extremely non-relational and disrespectful to people because you're not calling them by their name, what their name is. You're wanting me to make up some stupid thing to accommodate them, so I'm not being true to myself. So it's okay to be untrue to myself, to talk about somebody I shouldn't be talking about, and call them something that I shouldn't be calling, and talk to them in third person like we don't even have a relationship. Well, I shouldn't be talking about to them in the first place. By that time, your kid's head are spinning. They don't know what to think. But there's a part of me that goes, it's amazing to me that the judgmental key becomes so important. The church deals with that. Church deals with that in that you can't say anything about a lot of this stuff that's going on without people taking sides. You know that, don't you? Don't you see that? It's amazing the sides that are taken in this country. It's amazing how the racial stuff that's going on is so, to me, it's so foreign. And I live in a very racially slanted part of the country. Greatest slave trading was outside of Jefferson, Texas, which is just like 15 miles away from us. We live in the most racial part of, I think, of the country, where we put the red in redneck, kind of thing. And I'm always amazed by that if I say that, well, I had a black guy that was the best man in my wedding, that somebody would take that as being offensive. And I'm going, well, he was black, and he was in my wedding. What am I supposed to say? Well, he's just a man. Well, he is just a man, but you're the one that asked, and I'm just telling you that, they're in this quandary of stuff that it's just sitting down and talking and trying to come to some conclusions. And what I do is just ask questions, and I say, I don't know, a lot. And what we've seen is this whole gender confusion and stuff is dying down a little bit. And I want to work for it to die down. So I'm not going to inflame a whole lot of stuff. Kirk Cameron and I met. We met because of his wife. She and I were doing things together. Well, that didn't sound right. That didn't sound right at all. She was asking me to teach some Bible studies with her at a thing that she does down in Southern California. And so it was on parenting and all this stuff. I would go and meet with moms. I call it there were 300 lactating moms in the room. And while you're talking the whole time, you just hear. And so I would just look up in the air as I'd speak, and they're just coming out. And I'm just looking I'm not even going to look. at any of it. So Kirk says, well, let's get together and talk, and would love to. And he said, so when we got together, we ate lunch, and I said, well, Kirk, what are you doing right now? And he goes, well, I'm making movies. What kind of movies? He said, Christian movies. And I said, well, I hope they're not those cheesy Christian movies. And he goes, cheesy Christian movies like what? And I said, well, like Fireproof and Left Behind and all that other stuff. I said, I gag on that stuff. And he thought I was joking, and I wasn't. So anyway, we've developed this relationship through the years, and he's involved in this thing now where he's reading a children's book to different libraries and stuff. And so he's in reading the thing. It's called Brave Books, which is a great initiative, but they have people in drag dressing up, coming into libraries, doing things, and I'm going, dude, that is not my world that I'm going to live in, because I'm not going to do anything to stir up anything. I feel like I'm called to kind of calm things down a little bit. And my point of it is, this world is, this country is on edge about anything judgmental. And my comment is, we're going to lose having any kind of input with our kids if we come across that way. So that becomes something that we have to watch. And to me, it's a hard one, probably because I'm hardcore Texan. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit of a nude model. I'm going through this pretty fast. The relationship you have with your child is more important than winning. Yeah, I won. I told them they're going to clean their room and they're going to do this and do that. We got it all worked out. And you lose the relationship in the process. You just lost. There's got to be some things that you're willing to give up. You can't ask your child to quit doing something anymore unless you're willing to quit doing something. So what is it that you've been requiring that you can say, I can give up and quit? You ever think about that? Something that you can say that okay, I won't do this anymore. Music? Is music an issue for your kids? For anybody? Movies? Do you only let them watch VeggieTales and Disney movies? Disney? No way. Yeah. Disney is probably more damaging than anything else I watch, Music's great, but some of the other stuff. But do you limit it to that, or do you? Somewhere it's learning that it's okay to give up some things. I'm one that doesn't believe that music is an influence. I think it is a expression. And so there's times that I want kids to work out. We built a workout center for them and said, how do we get them to work out? And what I said was, let's let them listen to any music they want, whether it's filthy, dirty, lousy, crappy. Let them listen to anything. I don't care. I don't care. And I hate rap. I hate Christian rap. Toby Mack and I have had some deep conversations about how I hate rap. And I just hate it. It's just no good. And to me, but I kind of go, if I can give that up, about being restrictive, and I can benefit some in another way, because I know if our kids are working out and listening to music that they want, that it'll motivate them to work out, be on an elliptical, a treadmill, work out with weights, whatever. I'm willing to give this up to make sure they sleep better, that it fights their depression, that they eat better, that they're in shape, that they're developing a healthy coping mechanism. So I'm losing the battle to win the war. Okay? If I did, I would love to write a book, something like that, giving up battles to win the war. And somewhere there is a sacrifice that you and I have to make. If we're not willing to be respectful, we're not going to get respect. If we never say we're sorry, you're never going to hear your kids say you're sorry. They're sorry. If we don't say, will you forgive me, we will never hear kids say, will you forgive me? It's both and. And I don't know why that is, but I know that it is. And so there's a part of it where What I want is to make sure that the opportunity to relate with one another is key, and that's what's important. That's more important than a clean room. It's more important than a clean bathroom. My relationship with my son was more important than the cleanliness of his room. And I think I mentioned that I didn't go up to his room for 3 years. I just didn't, because it'd make me mad, because I interpret it as being disrespectful. He was just being a slob, quite honestly. Now he's just as obsessive as I am. So I love going to his house and just trashing it out, make him mad, pay him back. And so, but the relationship, and I hope you hear me saying that from the very beginning of last night, that the relationship is key, and that's what you have to look at. When you start asking questions, it creates connections. And in the back of that book are listings of questions for you to, just starters. And some people, why would we ask it? You get in the habit of asking questions. Then the opportunity is hopefully they'll start asking you questions. And that becomes key. It gets them to think. One of the other things here is start trusting and stop controlling. Now, do I trust kids? Absolutely not. Scripture says that cursed is the man who puts his trust in man, for he'll be like a bush in the desert. He'll dwell in the salt places of the earth where no one dwells. His leaves will wither at the time of heat. I don't trust kids at all. I trust that they'll make mistakes. I trust that they're going to mess up. I trust that they're going to make bad decisions. I trust that their curiosity will take over at times. But to trust them that they won't do that, not at all. I never will. But it doesn't mean I have to control them. And there's a place in there where I know that I can't trust that they're going to do everything right, but I have to give them control at the same time. And that's a little bit of risk. It's risky to say, I know you're going to blow it, but for the sake of training, I want you to take control of this in your life. Now, don't say that to them. Just say, I want you to be able to pick this up. I think you're capable of doing that. And it just means that I've got the idea that I'm always going to trust that they're never going to make a mistake. That's not going to happen. It will never happen. I should have eliminated some of these slides. The other thing is foster independence. And when you hear your child saying, well, I'm 17 years old, I can live on my own. Have yours ever said that? I can live on my own. I don't need you. I don't, I can do this. And you come back and say what? Well, do you know how much rent is? Who's going to pay for your medical bills? Who's going to pay for gas? What about car insurance? What'd you just do? You moved from this when your son is showing signs that he wants to be independent, which is a fantastic sign. Do you want your kids to be independent? Yes. How many of y'all want them to be dependent on you you want them to be independent. So what he's doing is kind of showing off. It's bravado. I would go, I think that's a great idea. But what do? We jump back and start sharing information with them, treat them like they're little kids. Where I'd be going, well, I'm 17, I can live on my own. I think that's a great idea. Why don't we make that happen sooner? I'm placing it in them. Let them figure it out. Well, how am I going to do this? I have no idea. And I'm not going to give them the answers. I'm going to let them figure those things out. See, conflict is a precursor to change. Many of you avoid conflict because you're fearful that you'll lose the relationship. If you want to keep the relationship at the same spot that it is right now. And that was my point a little while ago, that when I said, I don't want it to stay here. I want it to grow. There's no time. I would never go back. Jane and I go to our 50th high school reunion this year. Like we're really excited about that. To go hang out in high school. Oh, but the neat thing is there's going to be a talent show. God, I can hardly wait. I mean, no, I'm serious. There's going to be a talent. We had a class of 800 people, and they're going to have a talent show. And then they're going to have a dance. Have you seen a bunch of 70-year-old white people dance? It is the oddest thing in the world. They do this thing, and you're just sitting there going, you're just gagging. Then there isn't a time that I want to go back. Yet sometimes conflict is what ushers us on to the next stage of life, and it helps move us along. And I hope we don't ignore that, because it brings about the change that's needed. But if you're just trying to keep the peace all the time, then you're keeping the very thing that may be moving your family ahead. I mean, peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of hope amidst the conflict that gives you the opportunity to go, we're going to work through this. We're going to get on the other side of this. We're going to do well and get this. Are you following me with that? And those of you who've been married a long time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's been other things that have been far less than the fights you've had in your marriages that have divided up people. And you eventually find out, if I just stick with it, I think we can get to a better spot. Stick with it, I think we can get to a better spot. Stick with it, get to a better spot. And I think that's what becomes key when you begin to see that conflict that you have with your kid, it's okay. When they're upset or anything else, just sometimes leave it alone and let conflict have its perfect result. And just stop. You don't have to solve everything. Don't have to, and I know there's a scripture that says, don't let the sun go down on your anger and all that. But, there's sometimes I want kids to have a sleepless night. I want them to be wrestling with things that they need to wrestle through. And if we're always preventing that from happening, because we always want the peace, we always want them to be happy, and we don't want them to go through anything, then we are keeping them from growing up. And that becomes something that all of us need to work through in some way. The other part is pick your battles. You can't, some of you are standing up for things you don't need to be standing up for. Some of you, you're picky about things you don't need to be picky about. Some of you are worrying about things you don't need to worry about. Pick your battles. What's important and what's not? The older you get, you figure out what's important. What's important? When your child comes to you and says, I think I'm gay, what's important at that point? You to give them every scriptural example of why they shouldn't be? The relationship. That's the most important thing. I get ridiculed. One gal called. We have a girl that was with us a number of years ago that's doing porn stuff now in L.A. She's part of the L.A. modeling group. It's just they do a lot of films. And the mother called me and go, you keep hanging out with her, it's going to ruin your ministry. And I go, this young lady is a fine young lady that's found that this is the only way for her to support herself. She's getting paid a buttload of money. And buttload's a Hebrew term. You can use it. And she's getting paid so much money she can't get out of it, quite honestly. I mean, she's probably making $400,000 or $500,000 a year. And so I get with her because I want to maintain the relationship. And so she'll call me occasionally and go, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. That's the kind of relationship I want. I'm not sitting there going, well, you're doing what she knows what she's doing isn't right. She knows what she's doing, but she's stuck. And so my point is not to always go to her. My point is when you start asking questions, I want to be there for you. When you want to change a life, I'll help you any way that I can. When you want to, I'll do whatever I can to help you. But I'm not there to just go and go after her. She already knows that. And if I do, I'm pushing her away. So that's just a battle I'm not going to fight. And somebody goes, well, she's going to end up dead. She might, her choice. She's going to end up this. Nah, they've got people around her. She got a boyfriend. I've never understood that. He just loves the money, I guess. But there's some points that you just have to go, what's important? And what's important is your relationship that you have with your child. When they're pregnant, is that the time to be telling them they don't need to be pregnant? It's time to love on them. It's time they need them the most. My son came to me and he said, Dad, I want you to know that I'm going to get a divorce from Marissa. Really? Really? Why are you doing that? Well, I've been having an affair with a girl out in California. I've been with her, for the last 9 months or so. Wow. Anything else? No. I said, okay, let me tell you something, bud. Now, this is a manly response, okay? This is where I'm kind of going, I'm strong like bull. Let me tell you something, Adam. Don't call me again until you call Marissa's father and tell him how you've screwed up her life. Doesn't that sound good? Doesn't that sound like a real man? Yeah. I didn't talk to my son for 6 months. At the time that he needed me the most. I even called board members and I said, don't take him in. He needs to learn from this. Like I was the punishment guy. He lived in a Ramada Inn. What a crap hole. Anybody here work for Ramada Inn? Just rats everywhere. He's the one that I've always said, there's nothing you can do to make me love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make me love you less. He's the one I've always said that about. And when it came to the point that, well, he finally did something that pushed me away. And I felt like I was doing the right thing. I wasn't doing the right thing. I was battling something that wasn't my battle. I was holding something over him, and so we didn't talk for 6 months. There's a guy named Paul Overstreet who has written a bunch of songs. And he looked at me and he said, what the are you doing saying something like that? I thought it was a thing to do. He goes, where do you find that in Scripture? Where does that ever come alive in anywhere? That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard anybody say to a son. If he would have died during that time, you would have been a pathetic mess the rest of your life. If your wife would have died, he would have been a pathetic mess. If you would have died, he would have fallen apart. And you won't find anywhere in Scripture that it says to eliminate him during that time. And he was absolutely right. Pick your battles wisely. It is learning what works and what doesn't work. It is figuring out, it's not just what would Jesus do, what would Jesus have me do in the process of trying to maintain a relationship. And I tell you, that relationship is key. It is key. It's the most important thing. Give your teens your time. I will tell you that one of the most important things you can do is to say, as a part of these 5 things I'm asking from you, is that we go out and eat once a week. We get ice cream once a week. Go get coffee once a week. That we go spend time together and sit down and talk. And when you sit down and talk, you listen. You hush. You do not share your opinion. You do not, you can give reflection on stuff. You don't just yap the whole time to keep silence from happening. But you spend time with them with the opportunity to let them know, I'm available to you. It's one of the most important things of just saying, we're going to spend some time together. And then it may be that you ask them a question. Start texting them a question. Do that. Just text them a question. Go through a question and just ask them. Get them used to having to answer some things beyond just one-word answers. But you got to give them your time. Love when you don't feel like it. That's probably one of the hardest things. It's called grace. Grace is getting something that you don't deserve. Mercy is not getting something you do deserve. Grace is getting something you don't deserve. When somebody has offended you, when somebody has pushed you beyond, when somebody has done something to you, said something to you, then God is saying, move toward that person. And it's hard because there's another scripture that says, like the barred gates of the citadel, is one who has offended the other. So the tendency is we put this up and it never comes down. Well, that's Old Testament. New Testament is you can move toward that person. It's by offering grace. And grace is hard. Grace is not an easy concept between us humans, because our tendency is to walk away when we've been offended, especially you men. Every one of you men know exactly what I'm talking about. It's easy to walk away from family. It's easy to walk away from people we work with. It's easy to walk away from friends. It's easy to walk away from a church. Well, I've been offended by something. Grace would be moving towards somebody when you have every right to walk the other way. And it may be offering an idea or a verbiage of forgiveness. And forgiveness is giving up hope that you're ever going to have a better past. Can't change anything. It's not going to change. And that's where wisdom starts to play in this thing. When we talk about deepening relationships, we can't talk about relationships and forming relationships without talking about resolve in relationships as well. And it means, because if you're in a relationship long enough, you're going to offend one another. If you're in a relationship long enough, there's going to be opportunities for you to offer grace when you have every right to walk the other way. You have every right. And it is hard to do. But it's just saying, I'm going to do that. I'm going to love when I don't feel like it. And it'll change the destiny of that relationship. Well, wait a minute. Offer freedom to make mistakes. Let your child know it's okay to make mistakes. Because here you're saying that I've made mistakes. Can you name 5 mistakes that you've made in life? Then you need to share those with your kids when they become teens. Not when they're like 11 going, but I mean when they get a little bit older and they can sit and talk. You can start sharing stories about when you got fired, or maybe when something happened within your family. Hey, I want you to hear this in case anything happens. Something where you did something wrong. Hey, when you cheated on a test, when you got kicked out of school, when you were so drunk you couldn't see straight, when you said things that you shouldn't have been said. Those are all ways to engage with somebody else that says it's okay for us to talk about this. And it doesn't diminish the opportunity to require rules to keep them from doing that, but it strengthens the relationship in the midst of saying, I want something different for you. The other thing here is forgive when it's hard. We've already said that. Take a regular break. Stop. Learn how to laugh. Go on that vacation that you need to go on. Evidently you're going to Israel, but for me, that would be, I don't know whether that'd be a rest or not. Do you get to rest? But I think it'll be great. Everybody needs to go, and we have sign-ups in the back. And but you got to take a break somewhere. You got to learn to, a bow, if it's not released occasionally, will eventually break. And it just means you got to learn, where is that place that you can stop? Where's that place that you can relax, have a good time, that you can just stop, more than anything else. And that could be in a deer stand, that can be, in a women's group, that can be in, whatever it is, you've got to find some place to refresh. For me, it used to be on the back of a Harley, and then a friend of mine was killed in an accident, and so I gave my Harley to somebody, and then I bought a black horse, and so I call it my black Harley. And we're putting it to sleep. We're putting it down this week, so I got to figure out some other way. But I get on horseback, and I'll just jump up on a horse, go for a ride. And for me, that is so relaxing. Water skiing is so relaxing for me because I don't think about anything else because I think I'm going to die the whole time. But it's just thinking. It's just thinking. What do you do to relax? For Jane and I to open up a good bottle of wine and sit on our back porch and just sit. You've got to take a break somewhere. You've got to find a place to resolve. If you're dealing with a kid that's spinning out of control and is causing problems, it will drive your relationship apart. You give it time, it'll ruin your family. And so that's where you got to go. Okay, in the midst of all this, we can get to a good place. And I would tell you this as probably the closing thing on this. It's 2:30. It's hard to believe that we've gone all day. Is that the kids that live with us, they're not really rebellious kids. All the kids that have lived with me, I could probably name 5 kids that have been rebellious. The kids that live with us are lost. And I think kids get lost easily. And if you forget that you were once lost, then you will become very judgmental. Remember, we sing about it. Y'all sing the old hymn? I once was lost, but what? Now I'm found. But when you forget that you were lost at one time, then it changes your perspective of how you're looking at kids. So I would say remember remember those things, and then look at kids the same way. They're not being rebellious. They're lost. That kid that's influencing your kid down the street is probably not rebellious. He's lost. He's lost in a culture that is spinning out of control, and he's being consumed by it, and you may be the very one to change that. And I think you will be with your family as well. I hope we've said some things that are taking hold in some way. I know the mind can only absorb what your rear end can endure. And sitting for 5 hours today and 2.5 hours last night is a long time. But I hope what we can do or what we have done is give you fodder to think about. Throw it against the wall, see if it sticks. If it doesn't, let it go. But there's probably some things that do stick. You type A personalities are writing down everything. So put it down, and in a couple of days, no, not you, in a couple of days, read through your notes again and just highlight the things that jump out at you again. All of this stuff that we talked about can be found in all the books, all the curriculums, all the podcasts, all the other stuff. So there's places out there to get more information about all the stuff that we've talked about. If I thought that 7 hours would solve everybody's problems, then we would record this, send it out, and we'd be done with it. But I know that it takes thousands of articles and thousands of podcasts and thousands of radio programs. And, I go to do 50 different seminars a year. I'm on the road like crazy, meeting with people, the thousands that call us. I just know that it takes a lot to make that work. So take advantage of the resources you have. And I think the other thing, too, is find yourself a community that you can be involved in. If you don't have a church, find a church. That becomes important. And I know this, that I go into a lot of churches, and a lot of the people that run those churches are losers. And they just can't connect with people. They're so disconnected. They have no clue what's really going on in the lives of people. And what I have found by everybody that I have met at this church is that they're very connected. And that's what I would go. I would say the connection is more important than the preaching. It's more important than the worship. It's the connection that's made. The relationships that you form are more connected. Are more needed, I guess, than anything else. So if you don't have a church, this might be a great church for you to be a part of. This would be the church I'd be going to if I lived in this area, but I never will. And and I want you to know that the door, our door at Heartlight and in Texas is always open. If you ever come to Heartlight and if you're passing through Texas, come by and see us and be a part of. Just come in. I'd love to introduce you to the kids, and more importantly, introduce you to my wife Jan, who if you like me, you'll love her, kind of thing. And she's a jewel. But take advantage of the time that you have, of the resources you have, and the people that you have around you to help you through this time called adolescence. Thank you so much for the opportunity to spend these last few hours with you. Okay? Thanks, guys.
Well, you probably have a lot of things going through your mind and heart. And hey, we just want you to know, like Mark said, we want to be a place, our youth team, our kids team, our pastoral team, our soul care team. Man, we want to be a resource to you as families. And so please know that at Grace Chapel, we care deeply about the family unit and care deeply about the struggles, the hard things, the good things coming alongside you and rejoicing with you in moments and also weeping with you and walking with you in moments. And so as we even conclude this time of this amazing parenting conference that Mark has been gracious just to be here with us and just so much wisdom and advice, we want to be a space here that that we can walk with you. And that's true. And so if you need anything, if you need to reach out, if you need people to just walk with you, pray with you, be a sounding board for you or whatever, we would love to do that for you and to be part of that. So I just want to encourage you in that way. Our kids team, our Ardent team, this church is there for you. And I hope you know that. If you don't know that, I hope that you really feel that and we want to come alongside you. So reach out. What that looks like is literally contacting the church. You know, if you don't know somebody on the Ardent team, all our emails are on our website. We're a transparent place. And so just feel free to reach out and say, we need to continue conversation around this. We need some people to walk with us, or where do we go next, or whatever. And we just encourage you to do that. So we're here for you. And that's why we put this on. That's why we make it free for you. That's why we want you in the room, because we care deeply about walking alongside you. So let me pray for us. Let me just seal this whole time, because God is so gracious. He is so good. And the beautiful thing is he's with us in the midst of whatever you're walking back into. We don't know every story in this room, but we do know that God is present in your home, in the hard, in the good, and everything in between. And so let me just seal this time. God, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for even the wisdom, just the experience, the practical application of the Word of God. God, thank you for Mark. Thank you for his own life journey, the things that he's walked through, the things that he has participated in, the ways that he has learned, and you've taught him through experience, and how he's really set that out to us. And so, God, we're grateful for all of that, Lord. And we just, our community that care deeply about family units, about kids. And so, God, I pray that we'd be here for one another, that we'd weep with those who weep, we'd rejoice with those who rejoice, and truly this would be a place of relationship with others. And God, that we would walk together towards what you have for us in our homes, that we'd be supportive of one another, and Jesus, that you would get the glory for all of it. We really believe that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.